Why are there so many eyes in Deltarune? Because when I started noticing this, I could not stop seeing it everywhere. So put the green Pippin skiff on the screen because we're going full Pepe Sylvia here.
And I knock on her door and I say, Carol! Carol!
This rabbit hole starts all the way at the beginning of the game. Before the party goes for the Grand Door in Chapter 1 and begins their first Dark World adventure through Kara Kingdom, they go for the desolate wastes inside of the Closet Dark World. In this section of the game, there's a puzzle with 3 eyes, with a sign that says, "In this land, only eyes blinded by darkness can see the way." You solve the puzzle by making all of the eyes turn completely black. And then this exact type of puzzle shows up again at the start of Chapter 3's Dark World, in a similar environment too. Which, putting aside the fact that and the fact that Chris's name is already listed in the first save point before being overwritten by the player's chosen name, not only implying that they've been here before, but also possibly implying that they might have made this Dark World too, just like the one in Chapter 3. This eye sprite shows up so many times throughout the rest of the game. Countless of these eyes litter the entirety of the battleground in the 4th phase against a Shadow Mantle holder, whose battle theme, by the way, is literally called Burning Eyes, and these eyes appear on a red background. They litter the main Titan's body while Rousey first describes the roaring, as well as the immense amount of eyes that we can see when the Titan is emerging from the Dark Fountain in Chapter 4. Not to mention that if you're playing the game on console, the screen border is that of a bunch of the darkened eyes. And not only that, interestingly enough, this is the only screen border that actively changes depending on gameplay, instead of just whenever you reach a new area like other ones, with the eyes lighting up red whenever the Titan takes damage. And that term I used earlier, darkened eyes, prophecy directly refers to the Titans as being shaped from darkened eyes, and depicts eternal night, most likely describing the Dark World, with a bunch of eyes that look very, very similar to the other darkened eye sprites. And when Rousey is describing what a Dark World actually is, you know what's on the screen? More eyes. And at the same time, Friend is on the screen, who is related to Pink and Yellow, another very reoccurring visual theme throughout this game. And you know where those colors are? Their eyes! And it's not even just Image Friend who has pink and yellow eyes. Most of the time Pink and Yellow comes up, it's around eyes. The cat mic, pink and yellow eyes. Spamton, the first time we ever saw the pink and yellow, it's his glasses lenses. You know where those go over? Eyes! And oh yeah, the night, the roaring night, the thing that makes the Titans, when they do that giant scream thing that like rips open a rib cage and turns their head into a deer thing for whatever reason, you know what's there in the center of their torso? An eye! And in Mizzo, one of the Chapter 4 enemies, has an attack where if you wake them up, they send a bunch of floating eyes at you, which could just be a coincidence, but you know it's probably not. A lot of the Chapter 4 enemies seemingly have cryptic hints about the future of the game's story, and one of the rotating text that can appear around the wingline enemy is "Open your eyes." Open your eyes. It's eyes everywhere. Everywhere I look, it's eyes. And remember the sign that said, "In this land, only eyes blinded by darkness can see the way"? This is interesting because not only does it just kind of describe what a dark world is, there's also another puzzle in Chapter 1 that the hint for it is that the darker it gets, the more you can see. And so you have to go around in this room to make it more and more dark, well already in a dark world, to see this tree that has a switch to progress. And wait a second, it looks similar to the other trees in the area, except it seemingly has legs and an eye. One could even describe this as making it darker, then darker, then dark, which given the presence of a bunch of dark rooms in the dark world in Chapter 4, and the fact that that first puzzle sign was already seemingly teasing things further in the game. Does that mean that this means something? Is this what dark, darker, yet darker means? 3 layers of dark? How much darkness do we need? This doesn't even sound like I'm talking about Deltarune anymore, or anything Toby Fox. This sounds like I'm talking about Kingdom Hearts. A dream of a dream. And now darkness within darkness awaits you. And also, as much as I like the fan interpretation of Chris's eyes just being red, and I mean that as like just standard red eyes, just like red pupils, you know? Given the fact that Susie also gets the red eyes when shown making a fountain, probably means it's not just part of a character design, but instead that the entire eye, instead of just the pupils turning red, is a deliberate visual indication of something. Probably an indicator of a lot of determination, considering the fact that the main times this is shown is when someone's opening a dark fountain, and the only time that determination has even been mentioned in this entire game so far, compared to its constant references in Undertale, is when making dark fountains. And the fact that darkness and determination just have so many strange parallels and connections in general makes me think this has to do with determination instead of just a character design. But not only all of that, but you know how the Nintendo Switch version of Undertale was update to have the Clam Girl fun event tease the very soon upcoming release of Deltarune Chapter 1 by making Clam Girl turn into a goner, a type of character very heavily associated with Gaster, which given the fact that Muse underscore smile, the sound that plays in entry 17, is present 2 times in this game, and is also present in the actual game itself instead of an unused room like in Undertale that you have to hack your way into. And the fact that the intro sequence to the game is you making a grayscale human, and the file names for it is literally called Goner Maker, heavily implying that Gaster is involved or just straight up there in Deltarune. Most likely the voice in the intro and the end of chapter 4, and if you actually try to beat the night, and if you die in chapter 1, and through Toby Fox's Twitter account right before he published chapter 1, wow, this guy went from saying basically nothing in Undertale to saying so much in Deltarune, and we still don't know what any of this means. And speaking of Goner Girl, there's something about her that is different than all the other Goners. For the most part, all the Goners are just a pre-existing monster, the grayscale, whereas Goner Clam Girl is much more physically different than their initial monster, due to the fact that her head is replaced with a with a giant eye. Which, given the fact that this is the one Goner in the game that was made while Deltarune was already really far in development and about to come out, well, chapter 1 of it at least. Come on, man, this is a crazy coincidence. Oh, yeah, and I forgot. There's also a darkened eye on the side of the carpets in the dark sanctuaries. Okay, but now that we've talked over all these points, what does all of this mean? Well, given where and the frequency of when these darkened eyes appear, I think a conclusion can be drawn here. I believe that these eyes represent darkness itself, and that the more that we see of them somewhere, the closer that darkness is to pure darkness. Am I saying that the Shadow Mantle holder is made of pure darkness? No, of course not. I'm just saying that compared to your average darkener, I think that they're much more closer to it than, say, like, I don't know, Tenna. Or maybe even just the Roaring in general. And also the most we see of these darkened eyes in a short time frame, other than the Titans, because, Titans shaped from darkened eyes and all. Although, to be fair, the Titan itself doesn't necessarily have to be pure darkness. I view it more as just concentrated darkness. Is that initial wastelands in the Closet Dark World. This fountain is made from the fountain Rousite describes as being made from pure darkness. Or the other idea I mentioned of it just being related to the roaring slots in pretty nice in a lot of these areas too. Such as if Chris did make this fountain, it could be a reflection of their mind and the fact that they probably already know about the roaring and all that, and with more dark fountains, the closer it is. And also with this explanation, I don't even think I have to explain why the Roaring Knight would have one. Because this video is less so of an actual, like, theory, and more just calling it out before it inevitably gets much more important in later chapters to say, hey, I noticed that. I knew that was gonna be important. And also so you too can be on the lookout for eye shenanigans in future chapters. Although there is one more implication I would like to touch on further, and that is Goner Girl. Maybe it's just to look creepy, but that eye was so close to the release of Deltarune Chapter 1, I just can't let go of the idea that that means something. So hear me out. What if Goners are similar to amalgamates in the way that they're kind of an in-between state of being alive and dead. Amalgamates were monsters whose corpses were filled with determination, which caused them to live again. But monster bodies aren't made of enough physical matter to hold that much determination, so they start melting all over the place, whatnot. Whereas goners could be basically the same thing, but with darkness. I mean, given the very, very interesting hindsight into Entry 17 after Dark Fountains got explained better, Gaster seemed to be experimenting with darkness, and darkness has been shown to be able to bring someone back like it did with Gerson in Chapter 4. But honestly, the main reason that I think this, other than just giving us a main parallel between the two royal scientists, Goner as a word is defined as one that is ruined or doomed, or someone or something doomed, a hopeless case, bringing a word very correlated with death. So the idea that those called goners would themselves be correlated with their own death in some way would make sense. In fact, in that way, you could describe Gaster himself as a goner. And you know, maybe he is. I mean, the mystery man, who is most likely Gaster, come on, disappears with the same sound effect as both one of the Gaster followers and Goner Girl. And it's said that his life was cut short by the incident that fractured him through time and space, but also describes him as simultaneously being not just present, but omnipresent. And there is the chance that the reason the Gaster followers and Goners only show up from fun events is maybe they were also shadowed from time and space. But that's also a lot of speculation, considering we have no idea about anything about any of these characters. We just know that they're related to Gaster, who we also don't know that much about either. Anyway, I've been talking about Gaster for way too long. Yeah, eyes. There's a lot of them. They probably mean something. Goodbye.